Now, obviously, this is not a MacBook, even though I really try to use it like one. But to be honest, it's working out surprisingly well, and it's all because of these apps, so let's talk about them. And by the way, none of these apps are sponsored. I wish they were. I just genuinely love using them, so let's get into the video. Alright, first up, let's dive into the apps that I use for my photography and thumbnail creation. The iPad Pro is a powerhouse for this, and these apps make everything so much easier. So, for editing pictures and thumbnails, I use Lightroom. I've tried tons of editing apps, but sadly, nothing compares to Lightroom. It offers everything you might need for photo editing. The masking tools are perfect, the AI delete features work really well, and unlike Photoshop, it actually offers most of its desktop features on the iPad Pro. Plus, editing with the Apple Pencil feels so much more natural and easier. To be honest, I could never go back to editing on a computer. The only downside with Lightroom is that you can't edit from external drives, so you have to import the files first, but it's worth the overall experience. Next up is Affinity Photo. It's basically Photoshop for the iPad. I use it mainly for placing text behind objects thanks to its excellent masking features. And by the way, these features were there before the whole AI hype started, and they still work flawlessly. And the best part about Affinity Photo is that it's a one-time purchase, unlike every other editing app out there. I think I paid like 20 bucks for Affinity Photo like 3 years ago, and it's still working flawlessly. I even got a few updates for the app since then, and I have not paid for them. Affinity Photo is definitely a must-have app on the iPad if you're a content creator. Now let's talk about video editing. For rough edits, Luma Fusion is my go-to. Usually I speed up the timeline by 2 times, so it doesn't take me forever to do my A cuts. I also apply a color preset which I made in Davinci Resolve right from the beginning, so most of the times I don't even have to worry about color grading later on. I mean, sometimes the lighting can change because I'm filming in front of a big window, so I might need to color correct some clips in the timeline later so they match the others, but I can always do that in Davinci Resolve. Now, when it comes to color grading, Davinci Resolve is the single best app on the iPad. I've tried a lot of apps, even Lightroom. That's how desperate I was. Also, unlike Lightroom and many other editing apps, Davinci Resolve actually allows you to edit from an external drive. Sometimes I wish apps would copy each other's good features instead of subscription plans. And by the way, Davinci Resolve is completely free. For final touches, I use Capcut. It's straightforward and it's packed with features like transitions and effects in form of presets, if you will, and it's just saving me a lot of time. The only downside is that occasionally you might need an effect which doesn't exist in Capcut, but you can always add it later in another app if you really need to. For background music and sound effects, I use Epidemic sounds. They have a big library of tracks, which makes it somewhat easier to search for something, although at the same time it also makes it harder because there's too much to choose from, if that makes sense. They definitely need to improve their search function though. My iPad Pro is a key tool for staying productive and learning new things. I use Goodnotes for writing down video ideas or things that I've learned and I genuinely want to remember. Sometimes writing things down with a pen, just like in the student days, helps me remember things better and it helps me actually learn better. So that's what I use. It's great because it recognizes your handwriting, even if it's terrible just as mine. You can add diagrams and pictures to your notes and even take a picture of the whiteboard or notes from a class and add it to your notes. But really, you shouldn't be taking pictures with an iPad Pro in class. Taking notes is a crucial part for my creative process. It just helps me stay organized and remember the important things. Now let's talk about content consumption. Safari is my go-to browser on the iPad. Listen, it's really great, especially for watching YouTube, since you can add extensions like AdBlock, for example, and browse the internet without ads. It also supports features like background play or picture-in-picture, which are premium features in the YouTube app. In Safari though, completely free. Plus, there are tons of other extensions for Safari that you can download straight from the App Store, allowing for a highly personalized browsing experience. It's by far the best browser you can get on iPadOS, or to be honest, on any Apple device. The only downside for watching YouTube in Safari is that you don't get notifications, but in my book, that's a W. Now let's switch gears and talk how I keep track of my finances. For that, I use Finanzguru to keep track of my spendings. This app syncs with my bank and categorizes my transactions automatically, so I don't have to write anything down every time I make a purchase. That was a big issue for me actually. I've tried a lot of apps and I've always forgot to write things down after I bought something, so I was always missing expenses. So with this app, I can see where my money is going because it always keeps track of what I've spent spent. It also analyzes my spending habits and provides all kind of data and diagrams to help me manage my finances better. And it also tells me if I'm overpaying for services. The only problem with it is I'm not sure if it's available outside of EU or Germany for that matter. Alright, let's talk music. For that, I use Spotify, and I don't think I have to tell anybody what this is, right? The reason I use it over Apple Music is I actually tried Apple Music a few years ago and it was a pain to use. There was no option to move my Spotify library over to Apple Music, so I kind of had to download everything again. And once, this is actually kind of a funny story, I wanted to switch the App Store region because I wanted to download an app which wasn't available in my country anymore. So when I switched the region over, Apple just canceled my Apple Music subscription. And when I switched the country back, they renewed my subscription and charged me twice for the same month. Damn. Needless to say, I was mad furious and I haven't used Apple Music since, but lately I've been hearing good things about Apple Music, so maybe I'll give it a go someday, you know, when the trauma settles down. But for now, Spotify remains my go-to app because it doesn't come with headaches. Lastly, let's move on to gaming. I don't really play a lot of games on the iPad because the titles that I play are not supported by iPadOS. But since the iPad has now more power than quite a few MacBooks actually, game developers have started porting games to iPadOS. For example, Resident Evil and Genshin Impact are available on iPad, and Genshin has been out as long as it has been on PC. Sometimes I wish they'd port games like Little Nightmares to the iPad. There's no reason the iPad shouldn't be able to run that game, and if that happens, I guarantee you wouldn't find me for days because I'd be playing that on the iPad. Finally, let's talk about a tool that helps me brainstorm and kind of help me with my workflow. And it's none other than ChatGPT. ChatGPT really helps organize my scripts and brainstorm ideas. Sometimes I even ask for opinions on thumbnails, like which one might perform better. It's a great creative addition if you know how to use it right. Otherwise, it's just gonna spill a lot of useless text, but there's ways to get around it. It's all about asking the right question. I'm actually sitting here writing this script, and I wonder, what apps are you using? Let me know down in the comments below. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.